Scott Rabalais of The Advocate is our guest. Scott, you've been to practice. You talked to Mike Denbrock. Who's the quarterback?
It's no one that we can say at this point with any confidence. He was asked, one of the questions Mike Denbrock was asked was, hey, when do you want to make a decision? He's like, today. He'd like it to be today, but it's not going to be today, and it's not going to be anytime soon. Although he did say, look, at some point we have to prepare someone who can win some football games. You got to try to make a decision with the guy who will help best win football games for you. And but I don't think they still know who that is, unfortunately. So you asked me the last time I was on your show, just give you a name, and I said Miles Brennan. And I was at a party yesterday, and at least 3 people asked me, like, can you give me any inkling who is going to be? I said, well, no, they don't even know at LSU. So I don't think any of us can say with any degree of certainty.
Shout out to Perry Williams, who called me on the airplane in Chicago yesterday and said, hey, who's the quarterback going to be? I said, look, I don't know yet. So, yeah, it's the same. Can you recall, as often as you have been out there and as long as you covered this team, a quarterback competition that was similar to this, where you had no incumbent really, you had 3 names, and we really didn't know at all, have any inclination of who it was going to be?
Yeah, I'm thinking, yes, I kind of can, and I'm thinking I'm going to leave out a name, but 2000, and I think we can think back to 2000 because it's the last time LSU wasn't in the preseason coaches poll, right?
Yep.
Nick Saban's first year, but you had Booty, and you had Josh Booty, and you had Rohan Davey, and I'm pretty sure you had Craig Nall.
Craig Nall, yeah, he would have been the other one.
Yeah, and it kind of went back and forth, and Booty ended up getting the job most of the year. Now, remember, about the year 2, there were 4 different major All-SEC teams. There were 4 different All-SEC quarterbacks, and Josh Booty actually got one of them. But he was the guy who got pulled at halftime of the Georgia Tech game. Rohan Davey led them to the win in the Peach Bowl to wrap up that season. So this reminds me of that. It was the first year for a coach and a new system and a new way of evaluating things and multiple guys. And I think 3 guys is pretty familiar. Seems pretty. You got to leave Walker Howard. If you got as an odd man out, you got to say Walker Howard because he's just an incoming freshman, and the other 3 have all the experience that they have.
What do you make of the extra access here for the media at practice? You're getting a coordinator, which hadn't happened very much with the last 2 head coaches. I mean, what do you make of that?
Last 2 head coaches, we haven't talked to coordinators on, except for media days and at bowl games. Yeah. We haven't had coordinators like this in preseason camp since the DiNardo days, probably. I mean, going back to the late 90s. I'm enjoying it. Look, we're not at practice every single day, so they're not practice reports every day where you're getting the eyes on what's happening. But I personally don't mind to go out there and be sweating bullets, every single day that they're practicing. Leave it for the young, 20-year-old football players to do that. But we are getting some days where we have more like Thursday's practice. We're going to be able to watch the whole thing. We're going to be able to go to the scrimmages, which I always felt like a dope for standing outside Tiger Stadium when the jobbers and the VIPs are coming out and they've just seen the scrimmage, and you got to go hear Les Miles say, "Oh, we were 29 of 31 passing." Like, yeah, right, right, Les. And then we get into, as you said, the coordinators. We have Mike Denbrock today. We're going to get Matt House. We're going to get Brian Polian, the special teams coordinator, at some point. So I've been very pleased. We'll see what we get during the regular season, but I think it's good for us and good for the readers and the fans.
A lot of new faces out there on the Ponderosa, a lot of new freshmen coming in, a lot of guys in the transfer portal. When you were out at practice, was there anyone that you're following that caught your eye that you really think could be a talent for the Tigers this season?
Well, it's come up one name has come up a couple of times, and is Jones, the offensive lineman from Catholic.
Emory Jones.
Emory Jones, yeah, I'm blanking on the first name. Thank you. Denbrock said today the offensive line's in flux. We saw Garrett Dellinger working at center today, so it shows you how in flux it is. Brian Kelly says it's going to be better, but it's going to have to start showing itself and solidifying or something like that. But Jones has been mentioned both by Kelly and by Denbrock as someone who has stood out. So that's certainly a good sign for LSU because they need to solidify the offensive line because you talk about the schemes and who's going to be quarterback and how's Keyshawn Butte going to be and Are they going to throw to the running backs and get the tight ends involved? You got to have guys who can block up front. And frankly, as we all know, LSU got manhandled at times on the offensive front last year. So that has to be better. And so if a young freshman are going to make mistakes, if, Will Campbell is out there, he's going to get they're going to get schooled by a more seasoned SEC defensive lineman at some point. That's just going to happen. I think we're going to see that happen this year. But it's good that the more names that are coming to the fore that they can feel like they can count on or rotate in is for the better.
If that offensive line remains a question mark throughout camp, and Brian Kelly looks at this and goes, "This offensive line may not be great," does that hurt Miles Brennan's chances of being the quarterback because the other two guys are more athletic?
It probably doesn't help. I think it's a great point. And Denbach, of course, one thing he was asked about was that he said, "Look, you want the most mobility you could have at quarterback." And obviously, that leans to Jaden Daniels. I mean, he didn't name anybody, but he said, especially against the SEC defensive fronts that you're going to have to play. Yeah, it probably does. I mean, if you're going to be, running for your life a little bit more than you'd like or more than what is normal, I think it does benefit a guy like that. I thought Miles had some mobility though, and not to Daniels' extent, where he's going to take off and just seeing what we saw in the spring game with Daniels, he could easily take off and make a collapsed pocket into a 20-25 yard gain. I think it kind of leans towards him, but it's just one of the many factors they're going to have to account for, including leadership and passing ability and adapting to this offense and dealing with it, making the reads, all those things. But it's an important factor in that does kind of skew towards him for sure.
To me, on both sides of the ball, there could be some big question marks about this football team. But going into the season, which side of the ball are you more confident in that could be more dominant and kind of help this team win football games?
I guess because things are so unsettled on the offensive side. There's still question marks at quarterback, how the running back's going to be, Keishawn Butte going to be what he was the first half of last year. I guess I'm just going to skew towards the defense. I think they have a fantastic defensive line with Gay and Ojolari and Mason Smith and Jaquelin Roy and then obviously the linebackers. That's kind of the question mark. But Mike Jones got to be a guy. Micah Baskerville's got to be a guy. And then the secondary, I think if they can find chemistry, I think they've filled in as well as as well as could be expected with the players you lost like Ricks and McLaughlin, but with guys like Bernard Converse and Banks and Mickey Garner, who really looks like a starter at a cornerback spot, and Todd Harris and Jay Ward coming back, Joe Faucia. I think I'm more bullish on the defense being able to answer those questions that are there, and there's probably fewer questions because there's more moving parts on offense, right? I think, but I'm kind of leaning towards the defense being ahead of that and helping LSU more win games than the offense, which at times might. I think that the offense is just going to be creaky at times. They're going to have a game in the SEC where it's like a game like the Auburn game last year, where it's, God, if they could just get to 24 points or something like that, they could win. Well, I think the defense could help them there. The offense is going to have to do their part.
Scott Rabalais of The Advocate is our guest here on Hunt and Hill. Anything that you've observed at practice from a structural perspective or from a tempo or from just anything that Brian Kelly has done that kind of stood out to you as opposed to his predecessors?
It's all pretty high energy. It's a little different. I mean, the accents are different. The voices are different. For the most part, that you hear. You hear a lot of talk about. You hear a lot of coaches, and the voices are like, basically saying, try to be excellent all the time, and be. Attention to detail and that sort of thing. And I always say I'd like to say there's more that's just makes the light bulb go on. But I've covered LSU since 1992, and I've been out there when they were 2-9 that first year, and I've been out there when they won a national championship. And it doesn't look all that different. But I do think in general, from what you hear, the players talking and being out of practice here, accountability and responsibility is very much to the fore. I think LSU's got talented players who just need some structure and direction, and I think that this staff, from what I've seen so far, is more poised to give them that than what we've seen in the recent past. And I said recent past going back to the Saban days.
Scott, we appreciate some time. I'll see you out there on Thursday. Thanks.
My pleasure, guys. Thank you.
Scott Rabalais from The Advocate.
Thanks so much for watching Hunt Hill on YouTube.
Now do us a favor. Hit the red subscribe button below and throw us a like. See you next time.